just speechless and think, what would I even say to this that would not somehow, like, what can I say to this to prevent things from escalating is a question that I think I've needed to ask myself more often dating women.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to surface the emotions and feelings and work through things. And I think men, they really tend to stonewall and shut down.
Some of them, a lot of them.
And once someone shuts down, it's sort of like they make the decision that they don't want anyone to meet them where they're at. And, you know, everyone has a right to decide, like, I'm not ready for this level of vulnerability, or I'm triggered and I'm uncomfortable. And also that just makes it harder to build that emotional connection if you want to show up for them.
That is very true. And it's okay to be triggered and to not be ready to like get to a certain level of vulnerability. But I think it's also communicating that, which a lot of them don't. You know, when you shut down, it's just, that's it. I don't want to speak.
The shutdown is like, well, you should know what this means now.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't. Hey, Honesties. Welcome back to another episode of Honesty the Podcast with your host, Zena, aka Top Tier Z. If you're returning, thank you for subscribing. And if you're new to the channel, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you all. Today's episode is one that I am very excited for because there's so much to talk about. My guest is a lawyer. She's an artist. And she goes by the name Sigourney, aka Lawyer Bae. What's up, babe? Thank you for being here.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here with you.
How are you today? Mine is the cold outside.
Well, that was the first thing I was gonna say. I'm cold. Yeah. I'm not a winter person, like, by any means.
Girl, me either. We are right here.
Yeah.
Literally. This is the most close I've ever worn in this studio. Because it's usually so hot in here.
I was noticing that because I was looking at what other participants have come on and worn, and it looked like you would usually wear, like, dresses with heels and stuff like that. So yeah. I'm thinking, like, okay, how do I do the same thing without freezing my little bum off? So... yeah.
You did it though. You got the thigh highs. That's a winter staple.
It really
like,
is.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I got my work clothes on. They were like, what is Zena wearing today? This is me when I am not doing the most. Okay. Still delivering, but you know, slightly. But I want to get into my fast five. Okay. I do 5 questions of this or that. You give your answer and we keep it pushing. Okay. If you could only choose one way to express your creativity, and your choices are art, like drawing, painting, or pole dancing, which would you choose?
Oh my God.
Sorry, I had to do it.
What question is this? Oh God. If I had to choose one way, I would say oil painting and just that form of visual arts, because that is the first form of expression that I was drawn to. And I think that was my gateway into everything else. And it's sort of like, if you lose your gateway to other forms of expression, then I don't know if you can ground your creativity in the same way.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that answer.
Thank you.
That's for you. Yay. Food or breakfast food? Pancakes or waffles? She's like, does this girl know me?
You know what? Waffles.
Yes.
Waffles.
Same. Good choice.
Waffles.
First date. Dinner date or activity date?
Well, I'm bisexual, so whenever I date girls, it's always an activity date, because we like girl WL, woman on woman, like WLW dating is always like 2 girls, so we're always going to be like the most romantic. So it's always like an activity and dinner.
Okay,
like it's the dinner includes like some type of activity. Like there's never just one. Whereas I feel like on dates with dudes, everything is just like more clear cut in general.
So, you know, they are barely creative, so It makes sense.
I don't even want to come for them like that because
They know I'm joking.
sometimes they're being creative, but I think it's more like, I think men think a lot more about the way that they need to like perform on the date, and they're like much more hyper aware of that process of making sure that they're kind of showing that they can be a gentleman in all ways, which is good, but I think that consumes them a little bit.
I can see that. Like they're in their heads, sort of, kind of. But if you would choose, though, okay, if you would choose, let's go with women. Okay, an activity.
An activity, because it's so helpful to see how people just like behave in an environment. You know what I mean? Like you learn so much more about each other, and it's usually more fun too.
I agree. I would choose activity too. Being a woman, do you prefer small pocketbooks or bigger pocketbooks?
Bigger pocketbooks, because I want to keep all my things with me.
My whole life being there, girl. Like, yes. I don't want to miss a thing. Like, this is going to be hard for you. I'm not going to lie. You might have difficulty.
Hit me.
Okay. Relationship. Men or women?
Women.
Oh, yay. Okay. I thought that was going to be so hard, but that was so easy. Why women? I do have to ask.
How do I keep this? Okay. I said women quickly because I think women have an easier time being partners, I would say, than men do. Like, I think there are a lot of skills that you need to have a healthy relationship that women, we practice in our friendships. We practice in our relationships with our family. And it's not even something that's like so essential in our DNA as much as it's something that we've practiced from childhood.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of structural reasons for why men don't practice that, but it is a lot harder to be in a relationship with someone who's sort of like just learning to name a feeling on the feelings wheel.
Okay, I get what you're saying. It's funny because I actually had a girlfriend for 2 years when I was younger. And that experience always made me say I would never date a girl again because it was so
women are heinous. Let me just say this to the viewers. Women are diabolical. Women are diabolical. Like, because we know how our behavior affects someone. So when a woman chooses to do something hurtful, she knows. Viewers, she knows. That girl knows. She knows. And that's one thing that's a lot to sit with, because then you're thinking like, oh my God, like she really did that and she knows what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like you could be like reading a text message and you'll just look at your phone like
in disbelief. Like, damn.
Just speechless and think, what would I even say to this that would not somehow, like, what can I say to this to prevent things from escalating is a question that I think I've needed to ask myself more often dating women.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to surface the emotions and feelings and work through things. And I think men, they really tend to stonewall and shut down.
Some of them, a lot of them.
And once someone shuts down, it's sort of like they make the decision that they don't want anyone to meet them where they're at. And you know, everyone has a right to decide, like, I'm not ready for this level of vulnerability, or I'm triggered and I'm uncomfortable. And also that just makes it harder to build that emotional connection if you want to show up for them.
That is very true. And it's okay to be triggered and to not be ready to like get to a certain level of vulnerability. But I think it's also communicating that, which a lot of them don't. You know, when you shut down, it's just, that's it. I don't want to speak.
The shutdown is like, well, you should know what this means now.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't. Communicate. Like,
and
what's up?
then it's like, do you want people to continue to show up for you? Are you just not, you know what I mean? And then so much of the time you just have to say, you know, on the other end of that, it's so much of the time it's, okay, well, I respect and love myself, so I have to choose to give this person space. And it's not even about not caring. It's just, I think men more often make me choose between loving and respecting myself or loving them.
Wow.
And that's so painful because you can have so much love for someone and then but then when it's at that elemental level, then you have to walk away.
You have to choose yourself.
You have to.
You have to. Because if I don't choose myself right now and I choose you, you might end up not choosing me eventually. Then what's left for self?
Right.
You know? God, we got deep on the first 5 minutes in, baby. I love it. I love it. I love it. I do want to semi-switch gears. We'll revisit relationships and sexuality, as you know, but I do want to dive into you being a lawyer, right? You have your degree.
Yeah.
You're bored. Is that how you say it? Have you passed the bar? Is that how you say it?
I am not barred in New York, and I've taken the bar in other states, but when I moved back here, I asked myself, like, do I want to practice? Because it's not a big thing to like figure out how to navigate that and then like retake it and get all the extra little kind of okays that you need. And the answer was no. Like, I've never wanted to be in the courtroom. I kind of knew that immediately.
Yeah. Can I ask what kind of law you
I was doing transactional laws. So I kind of always knew like I wanted to be on the more contract side. And when I was in law school, I was in the dispute resolution team. So I was not on mock trial fighting people. I was like, let's do the negotiation to, you know, figure out how to move forward. Like that was what I was good at. In fact, when I did mock trial, the feedback they gave me was that my actual tone of voice was not aggressive enough for the courtroom. And I said to myself, I think that the person who said this to me was being a hater, but at the same time, there's a grain of truth to it. And I don't want to be in the courtroom. And I knew that I didn't. And I ended up working at a startup that the whole entire goal of it was to make sure people got legal access, like regular people got legal access through an app. As it turns out, it's not profitable to help people access justice. So that didn't end up.
It really isn't. No.
That didn't end up working out, but it was like I just needed to follow my heart and do something that I really believed in.
Yeah.
And then I've worked in nonprofits because I've just been like, I just want to feel like I'm using this knowledge to make society better, you know? And I also think I immediately knew like I wasn't going to be useful in the criminal justice system as a prosecutor because I would just be fighting my superiors. Like, I don't think it's that deep. Like, I don't think we have to charge him with that. That would have been me.
We like lessen the sentencing, like more so. It's funny. I actually went to school. I'm an associate's in criminal justice. And I do want to pursue law later on in my life when I become boring. I'm just not there yet. And no offense to anyone, right?
Oh, no.
But like...
Yeah, it does that to you. I'm not even going to lie. It like changes you in a terrifying way.
I'm happy because I feel like I could offend people. I'm not saying law is boring. I'm just saying like I wanted to explore more creatively before like settling down in that, you know? And so for you, I look at it like a juxtaposition, right?
Yeah.
You pole dance, you create art that's... I don't know how to describe it, but naked, you know, the body. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll do a better job at describing it than I do. But I look at it because like there's two sides, and there shouldn't be, right? Because you think of law, you think of corporate, you think of like just a clean, stoic, like blazer. I mean, boring for real. Like, let's be serious.
Yeah.
I work in corporate, it's boring.
Yeah.
And then there's this wild, big personality. There's the artsy side to you, right? So how did you go about navigating and not losing like that sensuality and that sense of self while working in corporate?
I would say I really never consciously had a plan of how to maintain myself. It's more just that who I am was always bursting at the seams. So, for example, when I was in law school, my final year, I actually dyed my hair red. And I don't mean like brown red, like how it is now. I dyed my hair peach, slightly orange. I had orange eyebrows at one point that matched my hair. Then I had fire engine red at another point. And I did all of that because I had to be so buttoned up. And I felt like if I can't speak up for queer people, I can't speak up for Black people, I can't speak up for trans people, because I did that in law school and white people bullied the fuck out of me.
Seriously?
You can bleep that out. If you're watching this and we went to law school together, I still remember each and every one of you who bullied me, and it's not over. Just know that. I'm so serious. Like, it's not over. They bullied me just for like speaking up for human rights. And I would still do it, but I kind of knew, okay, don't do that in the law firm.
Or in
right?
space, a particular space.
Don't do that like when you're working in these jobs, they're going to come for you. I would like allude to the idea that like, maybe, I don't know, maybe homeless people should be housed. Maybe we should make more shelters for them, like at a law firm. And people would pull me aside and say, like, you know, you really shouldn't say too much of your personal views because everyone likes you here. And you're so pretty and you have such a great personality. So you should keep your personal views to yourself. And so I dyed my hair this bright color because I felt like they're not letting me speak and I just have to express myself some way.
I need an outlet.
And needed an outlet. Oh, and there was like one white person at the law firm who was an Irish person with red hair. So I reached the point where our hair matched because I just wanted them to tell me why it was a problem when I did it. Because I knew they were racist.
Yeah.
And for my brain to even have gone to that point where I felt like I need to express myself and I want to fight this and I'm going to find a way to do it, is kind of how I'm hardwired, which I don't think is good for corporate spaces, even if it's good for creative spaces. Yeah. So I just was that way. And then I think during the lockdown, when I started to have a little more time, even though I was still working like crazy, but like just because no one was going anywhere. Yeah. And I had more time to create art and I began finding more of those creative outlets, that made it slightly easier. It's almost like having dedicated spaces and communities to share my art in made me feel a little more at peace, separating both sides. But I also think that, you know, so much of what drives me to do art and to do pole and like do all these things that are kind of rooted in this like radical liberation is about justice. So to me, it all makes sense for it to be together.
I get it. Wow. It's just like, damn, okay. It makes sense. If you get it, you get it. Like, honestly,
you get it.
You just have to listen to comprehend it. Because I'm like, it just sums it up so beautifully that kudos to you for being able to express that in that way. Can I ask you, how has pole dancing been an outlet for you? I know you resigned from law, so you're no longer practicing, right? And you're moving into nonprofit art, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I see your art, and then I'm like, hold on, I see you in your art. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, are you drawing yourself? Like,
sometimes.
Okay, first answer, how is pole dancing been an outlet for you? And then we'll go into the art.
Pole dancing has been, I'd say it's been an outlet for me in helping me process my emotions, because I'm one of those people who feels their emotions physically. Like every single emotion I have, I feel it somewhere in my body. Maybe I feel it in my temples, maybe I feel it in my neck, maybe I feel it in my chest, maybe I feel it in my gut, maybe I feel it like in my limbs. But I feel all of my emotions physically, and I've always been super active, and I used to be a competitive bodybuilder.
Oh yeah.
And I think exercise in general is an outlet for that, and journaling, therapy, blah, blah, blah. But there's a way that movement specifically kind of helps me process and release my emotions. And as a person with big emotions, it's so grounding for me to have movement as a place to just go to not even have to like make sense of my feelings, but to literally feel them, but kind of feel them like safely.
Yes, that makes sense. And also sometimes to release them.
Yeah.
Because when you move, you're getting that energy flowing. You know what I mean? Pole dancing is hard. I've never tried
it's hard. Yeah.
But girl, the core strength you need, I'm like, I can't even do a handstand, much less anything else, to be honest with you. So I commend like women who take that up as a skill, because a lot of times people see pole dancing, they immediately think strippers, sex club. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
they're in the sex industry, and it's like, no, it's a form of exercise as well.
I mean, I would say it is a form of exercise and art, but it also does come from sex work, right? Like, stripping is sex work, and it's not sex work the way that pornography is, but it's still sex work. And I actually think it's really important to honor that, because, I think there's a way that in society we have, especially American society, has this obsession with purity. We're sort of like, oh, like, we can't touch that. But I think sensuality and feeling connected to people is just a human need.
Yeah.
Like, sex work and dancing is just a way for people to be able to tap into that. And in order for sex workers of all kinds to be safe and like protected, then everyone in society needs to be able to say, okay, sex work is real work, labor is labor, like, all labor deserves respect.
And I completely agree. The funny thing I was going to say, it's exercise, but with sensuality.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I'm not dismissing the fact that it is sex work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think when I think of it and you're just doing it for yourself,
Yeah.
I kind of draw a distinction between sex work and just, I do this because I enjoy it. And I want to be sensual. I want to learn my body. I want to learn these movements for myself, whether it's for yourself or for your partner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you want to take it into sex work and you want to be a stripper, then that's your prerogative, But I do understand normalizing sex work and that industry, because a lot of times they're shunned upon, or people are, what's the word I'm looking for? Mistreating them, whether it's in private, whether it's in public. And it's like, no, they get paid to do what they do. And if that's what they enjoy doing, then you should let them do that. Like,
Yeah.
I constantly say everyone wants us to be boxed in. Everyone fears the freedom of expression. So you do it so effortlessly. Have you ever felt like, especially like with a name on Instagram like Lawyer Bae, right?
Yeah.
What was like your first instinct and your first feeling like posting like your first pole dancing video? What was going through your mind?
Well, when I first made the username Lawyer Bae, I was actually still in law school, and I kind of knew that I wanted people to be forced to deal with the juxtaposition of like lawyer and bae, because I'm also a millennial, so like bae was a word people were saying.
I still say it.
It's like, I'm a millennial. It's like very coded in like my generation, but I chose that because I wanted people to deal with my duality, but more broadly, I knew that I was not the only person, and especially not the only Black person, and not the only Black woman or femme who deserved to have space to have that duality. And so I always knew that I was going to use my platform to hopefully create more space just in the world in general. So I knew that when I made it. And once I started doing pole, my first thought honestly wasn't really around what people were gonna think. It was, I'm just the type of person, when I get excited about something, I go to everyone around me and I need to tell you about it. Okay. I need you to hear. I need you to learn about it. When I was in law school, the way I would force my friends to listen to contract law that had to have been so dry and so boring, but it was exciting to me. So I needed to tell everyone. And I just get like that with every interest. I'm just, so I kind of, oh my God, like, guys, I'm doing pole, like, tell you. So excited. Yeah. And I also, very transparently, I typically block coworkers like the minute I start working somewhere.
How do you find them? Okay, it's giving FBI, CIA is giving need to hire you at some point because, girl,
mind you can't do that in an entire company, but like I would do that because I would say like, okay, like if I get to know you, then I'll unblock you. Yeah. You can get to know me. But I also kind of always had this mentality that even jobs that are mission driven, even jobs that I'm passionate about, ultimately, like they don't deserve to like own every part of me.
Absolutely. I agree. Because for a minute, I felt like that too. I work in private equity. I'm an executive assistant, and I thank my company because they love my self-expression. Like I show up as myself. I dress how I want to, still professionally. Well, I guess casual professional, whatever. But I get to be me, right? And there's times when before rebranding this podcast, it spoke a lot about sex and just like these open experiences, you know? And for a moment, I'm like, it's so funny. The only Black person in my office found the podcast.
Of course.
Apparently, there was a clip on World Star Hip Hop.
Oh, God.
But the nice thing, it's funny. And I know you're watching. Shout out to you. That's my homie, though. That's my homie. We had just had he knew I had a podcast, right? And he was like, can I watch it? Like, what's the name? Where do I find it? So I'm like, all right, let me sleep on it over the weekend and I'll decide, you know, on Monday how I feel about it. Because I'm just like, stop, I don't want you to hear the things I'm saying. And I come in Monday and he's like, so I was on World Star, you know, scrolling, watching my wretched shit. And this clip pops up and I hear the voice at first. And I'm like, wait, talking about pegging a man. And I'm like, wait, is that Zena? And I'm like, oh my God, not that clip. Like out of all the clips.
The way that I know what clip you're talking about.
So you know it's wrong. So I was so embarrassed, but also it was nice to have like that one person because I've had I have a very small office and others are like, "What's your podcast name?" I'm like, "No, we're cool in the office and that's it," you know. But him being the only Black person, it was nice to have that safe space to some extent, you know. I do want to get into your experience as a queer Black woman. Yeah. Right. Honestly speaking, I don't know much about the community. So I remember when we were speaking, you were saying like Western culture, they over sexualize everything. And the meaning of queer is, I can't remember.
The meaning of queer is political. Like the meaning of queer is really as simple as being off of the mainstream, off of center. And as people in the Black diaspora, we're all, to an extent, queer because we're not white people and we exist outside of white culture. We exist outside of the mainstream. And in so many ways, in so many different cultures within the Black diaspora, whether you're West African, Black American, Caribbean, South Central American, no matter where you are, the way that we construct gender is a little different than the way white people do, right? Like if you even think about like growing up in the like the early 2000s, and the trends would be like the big, remember where like
oversized
t-shirts that almost look like a dress over their pants. But to us, that's like the epitome of hypermasculinity at that time. Like that is ultimately like a queer expression because that's very different from this like kind of traditional European suiting.
Fitted,
that's like telling you like what being a masculine man is supposed to look like. Like even the way that we show up in our gender expression is so different. And so, I think in terms of being Black and queer, to me, those two things are like, they're just so tied together. There's like this inherent way that they're so tied together. And then I would also say, like, just living in New York City, queer communities, although everyone does know each other in some way or is connected or like 1 degree of separation, no matter what people's race is, Black queer communities have such a family-like feeling to it, you know, especially because so many of us have family who don't accept that.
Yeah.
So we become each other's found family. And that to me feels like something that is a product of the Black experience and the queer experience. So it's also, and then the way we show up around each other and like our culture and how we spend time with each other and how we talk to each other is like merging Blackness and queerness together. So I think when people are like, like, do you identify with one more or the other? It's like, I don't know. It feels like it's a question that's sort of like, on the surface, it's like, okay, fair question. But when you go into it, it's a question that's sort of like,
ignorant. What?
It's a question that's sort of like missing the like depth and the complexity of the Black queer experience. And you just sort of like can't make it this like uniform thing.
I see what you're saying, because I had that conversation with you, you know, when we were screening, like, do you identify as Black first or as queer first? Because when I think of like the political America, you know, it's like, yeah, this can be your sexuality, but even though you identify as this, when people look at you, they see you as a Black woman. They don't know that you're a Black queer woman, so they kind of force you to choose one, you know, and of course they're forcing you to choose the Black before the queer first. You get what I'm saying? And it's unfair. So I literally, when we spoke, I was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But it's something I hear so often, you know, as a Black queer woman, right? When dating, is it sometimes like difficult to be transparent about your love for pole dancing because you may fear that you'll get tied into like, she's a stripper off the bat? Like,
no.
Or like that fear, like that person would expect you to be sexy all the time and sensual all the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I pole dance, I'm going to walk around the house half naked and use you every day of my life.
Honestly, I haven't felt afraid of what someone is going to think, but I've been very curious about how they respond, because the way they respond usually indicates how much empathy they have. Just, you know, whether it's like empathy towards people who are strippers and sex workers, their capacity to have empathy for something they may not be familiar with, and their empathy for me. You know, I think when people kind of go to this immediate like fantasy of me, honestly, it's pretty clear, like up front. And it I guess I don't want to say it helps me screen people, but I think there's a way that the people who I end up dating are able to approach me with complexity, because anyone else kind of shows their hand like very early on.
Got it. And I would rather you show your hand first and foremost than to like act like you have all this empathy. Oh, I'm gonna just accept her for who she is, and then you're over sexualizing me. I'm a fantasy. I'm fetishized. You know. So like, I like that you could see it right off the bat. And
people are just so they're just they're very transparent. So
the problem is they don't think they are, but I think that's also you just having good discernment, you being aware, you know, and you reading people, which not everyone has.
I'm old, like I'm 33, so it's like I've had a lot of old in the sense of like I've been myself for 33 years, and I'm sure if I started pole dancing at 20, I probably would have had a very hard time, but by the time I started to learn pole, I think I started to learn pole at 30. So I was already like pretty sure of who I was.
Yeah.
So now it just like sharpens that point a little finer, which makes it easier for me to observe people and like how they respond to me.
I like that. Well, we do have to wrap up.
Oh,
I always get sad when we have to wrap up, but thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me about your sexuality, about what you do. I want to have you back on because this was just way too short. So,
and I will be on time next time. Viewers, it was me. Wait, it was me. Now I'm looking directly at the camera. It was me. It was my fault. I was late. But it was also the New York weather's fault. It was also the snow's fault.
It's
it was
trash
also, this is my opinion and not honestly those opinion. It was also Eric Adams' fault because, you know, he'd be messing with them trains.
Girl, it's everything in New York. Everything that's going bad in New York is his fault.
It's Eric Adams' fault.
I feel the same.
If you're watching this, Eric Adams, we can have a conversation about how you can fix things. Like, it's an open dialogue, but you need to step up
and stop being outside and trying to be friends with everyone.
Get out the club and start doing stuff.
How about that? Let them know where they can find you on Instagram, TikTok, social media.
They can find me at you can find me at 3_ and then Lawyer Bae, like BAE, one word.
Literally. Sweet, simple, to the point. Yes. All right. Well, until next time, we shall continue our conversation. Yeah. Thank you for coming on. And to my viewers, I will see you all next week. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Come on, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Bye, guys.